A famous family's daughter loses her father. A wood cellar was her bequest. She could die from its secret. Today, we will summarize the plot of the upcoming film The Inheritance. District Attorney Lauren Monroe, daughter of Archer Monroe, relives the circumstances leading up to her learning of her father's death during her morning run. Also, this is intercut with footage of her father's final moments. She says that she was being interviewed about a big case outside the courthouse when one of the reporters told her in a rude way that her father had died. She is stunned. She keeps quiet and has to be led away from the crowd of reporters. She stops running and puts her hands on her head when she gets to this part of her memory. As the minister says the funeral rites, Lauren, her husband Scott, her daughter Claire, her mother Catherine, and her brother William are all at the cemetery. They then convoy home. Emilio, Lauren's cop friend, departs the house with condolences. William and Lauren debate moving mom closer. He adds that he is only staying for the will reading since he must return to campaigning. Lauren stays in her father's study before the will reading. She recalls her father's teachings. Archer Monroe's lawyer, Harold, reads the will in front of only his family. Catherine gets control of the company and estates. William gets $20 million, and the police and firemen's fund and Harvard School of Medicine each get $50 million. Lauren gets $1 million. Harold offers her a secret envelope. He tells her father was proud of her despite her small inheritance. The packet contains a key and flash drive. In the flash, directions to a secret on the house grounds have been saved. She leaves to find out this secret. Scott stops her on her way out, and she tells him she just wants to be alone. As she heads that way, she recalls when her father forbade her from playing in that section of the property. The secret is a cellar. Lauren opens the wooden cover and walks to the end of the darkened hallway. She opens a door to the surprise of a sleeping man with a collar on his neck who looks rough. She moves toward him, but he moves when she tries to touch him. She runs all the way back home because she is scared. She pants uncontrollably before entering. She calls 911, but doesn't report her sighting. William observes her uneasiness, but she shrugs. She rejects his offer to share. She suggests he campaign with it. Lauren and her mother are on the balcony next. As she sees Lauren's mood, her mother tells her her father was proud of her. Lauren asks if there are any enemies of her father that she should be afraid of. Her mother tells her that she shouldn't worry about that because it's not her business. William, Scott, and Claire leave, and Lauren goes back to her dad's office. She talks about how her father didn't agree with her choice to become a doc. She goes back to the cellar early the next morning. The man in the cellar is lying down this time. As she sees his eyes open, she takes his fingerprint and runs. She returns, masking her entrance. She requests the man's identify, but instead, he reveals herself and instructs her to take off the disguise. Accepts. Despite her silence, he assumes her father is dead and offers his sympathies. He requests food, scotch, and Gauloise's cigarettes when she asks him to identify himself again. She mocks his requests. He begs her to leave the light on before leaving. She concurred. She gives Emilio the fingerprints she collected and gets the cellar man supper. Scott calls to check on her and remind her of Claire's performance as she returns to the cellar. She lies about going to court and promises to attend their daughter's recital. She feeds the prisoner. She starts asking inquiries when she puts the food down. He claims she is superior than Archer. Lauren forbids him from discussing Catherine's family. As she leaves, she tells him that he will never see her again if she doesn't get answers the next time she comes. As she comes out of the cellar, her assistant calls to tell her that the court is starting. She tells him to take care of the court case for that day, but he is afraid of the other lawyer. She says she'll be there soon, and then ends the call. She goes back to the cellar and gives the prisoner the scotch bottle and the chocolate bar. He tells her about the photos her father took of him when she gets back from going to see them. He introduces himself as Morgan Warner. When she shakes his hand, he holds it for a few seconds. He realizes and apologizes, releasing her hand, explaining that he hasn't talked to anyone in a long time. He finally starts his story by talking about how he and Archer used to like to gamble and go out with women when they were younger. After drinking, he and Archer went to the city to watch a huge game. Archer drove and knocked down a young man. Archer didn't call the police despite Morgan's advice. He finally buried the man in a wooded area that was all alone. Archer knocked Morgan out and took him to the cellar while he was still unconscious because he didn't want Morgan to talk about what happened that night. Morgan begged Archer to kill him. Archer could no longer finish him. Morgan declined his offer to commit suicide. He tells Lauren that his whole life will be his payback to Archer. He also tells Lauren about Sophia Fiore, Archer's mistress. When she doesn't believe him, he gives her the woman's address and tells her to check with Harold. She storms out of the room, but not before threatening to lock him in the cellar if he lies. On her approach to the courts, she calls Emilio and instructs him to seek for Morgan Warner, who went missing in the late 1980s. For arriving late, she apologizes to the judge. The next few scenes illustrate Morgan's cellar routine. Lauren travels to Sophia Fiore's address Morgan gave her after court. Sophia appears. Sophia tells her she didn't need to come, but Lauren says that she is trying to put the pieces back together. She finds pictures of Alex at his mom's house, which tells her that Sophia has a son named Alex. She becomes clearly upset. Sophia tells her Alex doesn't know about Archer's other family. She confronts Harold about Sophia. Harold tells her to go, saying Sophia signed a non-disclosure agreement and would never reveal anything. She asks Harold if Archer mentioned Morgan Warner before leaving. Harold finds the name unfamiliar. Lauren visits William's campaign office with her mother. She asks about Morgan Warner, but Catherine doesn't know anyone with that name. William asks her to speak the next day at his campaign rally. She says she doesn't have much time, but he manages to get her to agree. She goes downstairs. Morgan boasts about his Sophia prediction. Lauren denies Morgan's request to remove his collar. She asks him about her father instead. He tells her Archer always told him about his life. He deems Archer a bad father, husband, and friend and tells Lauren her father was proud of her motherhood. Lauren says that her father was not a good parent, so that's why she is. When she asks him to explain why Archer buried the body, he tells her to dig it up, but he says he can't tell her where it is unless she takes him there. Lauren unlocks Morgan's collar in the next scene. He's gunned down. He exits. He is shocked when he sees the outside for the first time in 30 years. He thanks her. She snaps him out of his reverie and urges him on. Scott calls her and yells at her for not talking to him or answering his calls. He informs her she missed Claire's recital. Apologizing, she abruptly ends the phone. Lauren drives. Morgan directs. Eventually, they reach the location in the woods. Morgan offers to dig, but Lauren is not interested. While she digs, he sits on a fallen log. She continues to dig for a while as he smokes a cigarette. She worries about wasting time. He urges her to dig. She digs again and hits something hard. She requests light from him. She gets on all fours and scrapes the soil off. She sees bones. She rushes to refill the hole. Drives home disoriented. At gunpoint, she escorts him back to his room in the cellar. She then instructs him to replace the collar. They disagree and quarrel. Now that he has presented evidence, he appeals to her sense of fairness and compassion to release him. Lauren is furious, almost crying, but she doesn't back down. He kneels and begs again, but she refuses, realizing she won't liberate him yet. He reattaches the collar, and she locks it. He vows that he will simply disappear if she frees him. Instead, she simply removes the handcuffs and leaves. While she is closing the door, he yells her name. She is experiencing a mental collapse at home. She phones Emilio and asks for the list of missing people. He tells her he doesn't have it. Then memories of some of her disputes with her father return to her. Morgan's statements are also recalled. She smashes a picture of Archer and her as babies. She returns home. In bed are Claire and Scott. She joins them and offers Claire an apology. The next day, she will appear in court. As she approaches, she instructs her assistant to brief her on recent events. He provides a list of shell firms to her. She only stands up when the judge arrives. While a witness testifies, she reads. She becomes engrossed with a new discovery. 3 times are necessary for the judge to catch her attention. As soon as the court adjourns, she dashes away. She confronts Harold about what she discovered. The information suggests that Archer is a co-conspirator with the prosecution party. Dude Harold urges her to leave again. She visits William's office for advice. She wonders what he would do if someone attacked their family since he had privileged information about them. He says he would either buy the guy off or throw his body in the river. He then says that she knows what Archer would have done. Lauren is thinking hard as she walks to the basement. She demands Morgan's disappearance if he's released. She dumps a duffel on the floor and tells him to clean up before leaving that night. Harold and she meet in an underground parking lot. She tells him to open an account in the Cayman Islands, put $1 million in it, and get $100,000 in cash. He tries to figure out why these rules are in place, but she won't tell anyone. He wishes her well. She requests that he call her when finished. Morgan is dressing and styling his hair when she returns to the cellar. She asks him if Archer said anything about her. Morgan tells her that Archer didn't like the idea of her becoming a city attorney at first. He thought she should go to law school and fight for the family's rights. Morgan said Archer was insulted when she became Da and went after his buddies. Before his death, he changed his mind. Morgan also says that William may have bought the votes of the union leaders by giving them money. When Lauren disagrees, he drops a name. In the next scene, Lauren tells William the name and he gets angry. William's union arrangement was brokered by the name's owner. William justifies by saying all politicians cut agreements. However, Lauren is more upset that William lied to her at first. When he says that she got her job as Da because of deals he and their father made, she hits him, tells him not to lie to her again, and leaves. Morgan leaves the cellar in a clean suit. He takes a chess piece off the table before leaving the cellar. He looks around when he leaves. While Lauren waits for him, he takes in the noises and odors of his surroundings. They drive to a private airfield where Harold's elegant plane is waiting for them. Prior to boarding the plane, Morgan shows Lauren a page from a magazine that he had been saving. It has a recipe for key lime pie on it. He says that it was one of the things that kept him in captivity for all those years. As he walks away, she calls him back and threatens to blame all the cold cases of the last 30 years on him if he returns or speaks. Morgan laughs and nods at this. Lauren cleans the cellar when Morgan reaches the Caymans. She puts items from the shelves in a black rubbish bag. Emilio finds the missing person file. He leaves Lauren a voicemail saying he's sending it to the Monroe summer cottage as ordered. Emilio's package awaits Catherine at the summer cottage. Archer's study. She sees that it's all over the place and calls for Lauren. Lauren sees Emilio's message when she comes out of the cellar. She ran into the house quickly to find her mother. She finds Catherine going through the package Emilio sent to see what's inside. She tells her mother she's using Morgan's data for work. Her mother tells her the man's name is Carson, not Morgan. Her mother claims Morgan Carson is evil. After that, she asks Lauren where Carson is. Lauren tells her that she thought she was doing the right thing when she let him go. She tells her mother to lock the doors and says she'll take care of it. On the way to the airport, she dials Harold's number, but his voicemail is reached. She sees Harold unconscious next to the jet and hurries back outside. On her way home, she attempts to contact her mother, but her call goes to voicemail. She cries as she enters the summer house. She can't find her mother. She hurries to the cellar and discovers her mother on the floor of Morgan's cell. Mom's unconscious. Carson yells her name in the corridor and turns off the light as Lauren attempts to convince her. She uses a flashlight to find him. He teases her by talking as she searches the cellar for him. He overpowers her after a brief fight. He takes her to his old room. Lauren comes around. Carson tells her he tried to poison Archer. He says his strategy was hopeless until she arrived. He played the victim after noticing her sensitivity. William would have left him to rot in the cellar. At this point, Catherine awakens and Carson shifts his focus to her. Lauren instructs him to leave Catherine alone, since the matter is between them alone. Carson informs her that she is in error. He recounts how he assaulted Catherine at Archer's summer house party. Catherine reports him to Archer, who beats him and drags him away in the car. Archer strikes a young man to the ground and decides to bury him. Carson reveals in the present that he realized he owned Archer at that time. However, he adds that Archer knocking him out and throwing him into the cellar was unexpected. Archer eventually vented to Carson. Carson smacks Catherine for saying she should have killed Carson. Lauren inquires about his demands. He responds, "I want my pound of flesh." She promises to testify about her father's secret dealings if Carson leaves her family alone. He responds that he does not make deals. Carson then plots to leave Lauren and Catherine in the cellars while he pursues William and destroys the family's history with his secrets. Lauren changes tactics. She labels him a sad lunatic. This angers him, so he strikes her and throws her against the wall. Then, he reveals that he is her father. This news stuns Lauren to her core. However, Catherine has risen and shoots him in the back of the skull. After he falls, she fires 2 more times at him. She then sits down with Lauren and confirms that she is a Monroe. They saturate the cellar with gasoline, light it ablaze, and watch it burn. How would you rate this film? Please share your thoughts in the comments section, and like and subscribe to Cinefilm Recap if you enjoyed the video for more movie reviews. See you again soon.